Welcome back to the Andrew and Ian Show. I'm Andrew Serwick here again with Ian. Hi, Ian. We finally fucking made it. It is real week one for college football. Week one for NFL is next week, of course. But we got college football finally going on tonight. We got 4 games going right now, at least in the top 25. There's a few other, games going on as well. But we finally fucking made it, man. How you doing this evening?
Feels great to be able to say that we finally made it back to football season.
Yeah, no kidding. Finally. I mean, yes, a lot of these are, I wouldn't say meaningless games, but they're meaningless games because they're meaningless opponents for these top 25 teams. So let's get right into it. As always, we'll preview top 25 teams for this weekend for week one, like we always do. And so, yeah, that's just all today's episode is going to be. So let's get right into the games that are being played right now. We got at the halftime right now, NC State versus West Carolina tied up at 14-14. Again, at the half here. So far, I got to say, West Carolina's put up a pretty decent fight here against NC State, who came into this game favored by 32 and a half, by the way. I don't know if that, I don't think NC State's going to cover that given how West Carolina's played so far, but I'm still going to take NC State to win this game. I don't think they're covering that 32 and a half though.
Yeah, as of right now, I mean, obviously they had a very untimely pick in the beginning of the game, but yeah, it's still 14-14. So at halftime, you have a whole half to cover, but like you said, I don't think they're covering. It's a little close right now, but I still think NC State pulls off the win.
Yeah, I just don't see them covering that 32 and a half now at this point. I mean, yes, they had that untimely pick at the beginning of the game, but West Carolina's put up a pretty decent fight so far, and I got some question marks for the defense already, but it is what it is. There, I think they'll still win this no matter what. Missouri's playing; they're up 28-0, heading they're close to the 2-minute warning right now over Murray State. Missouri, one of those teams I think could be a threat in the SEC this year, and I think is a definite playoff team given their schedule. They came into this game favored by 50 and a half. They're already up. They're already past halfway through that in the first half. It's 28-0, and they're on their own 40-yard line with 2 minutes left in this half. So even if they kick a field goal, they're only 20 points away from covering that if they still shut out Murray State. But again, it's a meaningless game really for Missouri. It's just kind of a all right, let's see what our guys can do, as an actual group against an actual opponent instead of, our scout team sort of deal. So, yeah, Missouri playing a good game so far though. But yeah, picking Missouri, and I don't know about covering because 50.5 is a lot, but yeah, fuck it, they're gonna cover it.
Yeah, I mean they're already at 28, and there's 2:21 left to play. They've been playing really well on both sides of the ball. They have a pick six already, so the defense is getting in on the scoring, and when your defense is getting in on the scoring, it's gonna be a rough time for the opponent. So I actually can see them covering, especially if the defense can keep contributing with turnovers or, turnovers and scores at the same time.
Yeah. That's completely fair, and we'll get right into this game because they just scored. Number 12 Utah just scored to go up 7-0 over Southern Utah. There's about 8:40 left in the first quarter there. Yeah, I'm taking Utah to win this game. Cam Rising's back. He's looking, like himself. I mean, three passes for 75 yards and a touchdown. That's pretty solid right there.
Yeah, like we said when we were covering Utah and their conference for the conference reviews and whatnot, Cam Rising's back. He's going to be a threat to deal with this Utah team, and already, like you said, 3 passes, 75 yards, and a touchdown. He's averaging 25 yards, a throw. It's pretty good for someone who's just coming back off injury. So I'm riding with Utah, and they're going to cover on this one.
Yeah, that 37.5. I don't know. I don't know if they'll cover that, but yeah, they might. But yeah, also Cam Rising 11 yards on one carry as well. So I mean, he's back to his old self, I would say. And coming off of an injury where he was sidelined all season long. Yeah, he's looking pretty good. Kansas is up. Number 22 Kansas. They're up 27-0 on Lindenwood with 3 minutes left in the second quarter. They just had a turnover on downs, I believe. I'm not currently watching that game, but they're first and 10 on their own 5-yard line. So I would assume that's what it was, or it was a pick. One of the two. But yeah, 27-0 over Lindenwood right now. Obviously, I'm picking Kansas to win this game. I was good. I mean, and the thing is with these games that are going on right now, you kind of already know the winner anyways, way before, well before we were even recording this episode. I mean, we knew these games would be playing when we started recording, and our picks would have stayed the same no matter what. Kansas favored by 48.5 in this one. And I'd say they'll cover it. I would say so.
Yeah, they're up 27-0 right now, and if Kansas is up 27-0 on you, you're in for a real rough night. Granted, I don't know who the fuck Lindenwood is. I don't know where they're at. They're definitely being paid to lose this game.
Yeah, they definitely are. I know they joined D1 hockey last year. So that's kind of cool, but yeah, don't know who the fuck Lindenwood really is. So anyways, tomorrow we have Oklahoma hosting Temple. Oklahoma favored by 42 here. Temple's a program that's just kind of always been in the shitter, always will be in the shitter sort of deal. And yes, I know we joked about Oklahoma being a shit team, not ready for the SEC, but I mean, they'll win this game, no problem. I don't think OU's going to cover that 42 though, and that's more just due to the fact that Temple is a FBS program, so it's not like these joke FCS schools that a lot of these teams are playing tonight. It's at least a somewhat real opponent for Oklahoma. I mean, you can argue real, based on that 42, being favored by 42 there. But yeah, I'll take Oklahoma, and I don't think they'll cover it. But yeah, they'll blow them out for sure.
Yeah, I think you said it best. I do think Oklahoma wins this one, but scoring 42 points as against an FBS team, as another FBS team, it's pretty hefty. And then not only scoring 42 points, winning by 42 or more points is just another beast in and of itself. That's like asking Ohio State to keep playing Eastern Michigan every week and blowing them out by 60, something like that. It's something that it can happen, but the odds of it actually happening are pretty slim to none unless there is a very glaring difference in skill.
Yeah, like if this was Ohio State, I would take them to cover that 42. But I mean, it's Oklahoma. They're not as good as they were a few years ago, and they'll be kind of just a middling team. Probably stay in the top 25 this year, but yeah, I don't think they're ready for the SEC still. Michigan, noon on Saturday, hosting Fresno State. Michigan favored by 21 in this one. This is a game that I've kind of looked at. Fresno State's got a lot of returning talent this year from that team that was in and out of that top 25 in those bottom couple spots towards the end of last season because they were playing very, very good football and beating some pretty good teams. And this is kind of one where I'm like, okay, well, Michigan has like no returning players except for like a couple. Alex Orji is our starting quarterback, so that's not good. That is not good at all. I mean, he can run. He might be the fastest quarterback in the entire FBS, but yeah, he's not very known for his arm. And this is kind of like one of those games where it's like, okay, I might be overthinking this, but Fresno State might fucking challenge us for this win. I I think Michigan wins, but I don't think they cover that 21.
Yeah, I'm with you here. Michigan isn't the same beast that they were last year. And yeah, Fresno State is been on the up and up, and they've been challenging for, a top 25 spot the past, few years and whatnot. And I think 21 is very, very gracious towards Michigan. Like you said, they have their best offensive player coming back is Donovan Edwards, right?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
I mean, we know Donovan Edwards can play ball. We saw what he did
Yes.
against Ohio State. We saw
Last
what
year
he
he
did.
was ass though. Last year he was pretty ass until the last 2 games of the year.
Well, right. Again, that's what I said. We saw what he did against Ohio State. But like even without, Blake Corum, Michigan was in an okay spot with the run game because of him.
Yeah, well, I mean that was 2 years ago when Corum was out, and Donovan took over and he looked great. And then last year he did not look good at all. And granted, Corum had the season that he had last year, anyways. But then Donovan showed up in the game against Bama and the game against Washington, and the games where it mattered most for him. But yeah, he doesn't have the offensive line that he did last year. All five of them are brand new. A lot of them are first year starters. Some of them are transferring in. So, it's going to be very very tough this year for Michigan. I think. I mean, the defense is still solid. They brought in some good transfers on the defensive side. So I think that's going to be okay. Maybe not as good as it was last year, but still solid. It's just the offense really, really worries me this year. Especially because we don't have an actual quarterback and we don't have an offensive line to protect our quarterback. And if Donovan plays like he did last year with this offensive line, it's going to be a really, really, really tough year. But if he bounces back, even with the offensive line that he has in front of him, and he has a good year, we might be okay. Georgia and Clemson. Georgia. This is a Georgia's the home team. It is a neutral field game, and I say neutral with quotation marks around that because it is in Atlanta, Georgia. So it's not in Athens, but it's a de facto home game for Georgia, of course. Number 1 versus number 14 here. Georgia favored by 11.5. I'm taking Georgia, and they will cover this one. They're all around the best team right now, I think. Offensively, yes, they lost quite a bit last year, especially at the tight end position, losing Brock Bowers. I mean, you lose a guy like that, your offense is going to suffer no matter what. Yeah, no, I mean, both sides of the ball, fantastic. Lots of NFL talent and future NFL talent, I should say, coming up here for Georgia. And then Clemson, it's just one of those teams that are just kind of not really in decline, but have taken quite a few steps back from where they were just a couple years ago. And you just kind of see it every year. It's just gotten a little bit worse. I think they're done taking steps backwards, but I don't see any way this team's going to be going forward here either. So yeah, I'm taking Georgia, and they're going to cover that 11.5.
Yeah, this is one of those moments where you see a double digit spread in favor of one team in a top 25 matchup, no less, and you're kind of okay with it because it's number 1 Georgia. Like you said, they are one of the better teams, if not the best all around team, on paper this season, and they have been for how many years now. 4 or 5 now, where they've just been coming out of the SEC, punching Bama in the mouth, and then either losing to them in the championship, or even making the championships and winning them. They have a hell of a program coming back from Georgia. They're recruiting really well, and they're going to stay at that top spot unless someone else starts, doing the same work that they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a tough year in the SEC to take down Georgia. I mean, on paper, yes, they do have the best team in the entire FBS. And yeah, it's going to be a very, very long year. Very quick year for Georgia, though, I think. Should be pretty good. But once the playoffs roll around, though, yeah, you never know. West Virginia is going to be hosting number 8 Penn State. Penn State favored by 8 in this one. Now, when we talked about West Virginia in the Big 12 preview show, I said, this is one of those teams where Um, they play tough, but they just don't have the talent to compete. That said, this is the year where we have to find out, is Penn State actually moving forward, or are they still going to be a 10-2 program? And if Penn State really wants to prove that they are a bet better than a 10-2 program, and be competitive, they're going to have to make some big changes this year, and they're going to have to play really, really well, really solid football. They have some good returning talent back. The question mark at quarterback still, but and honestly, I'd say question mark at coaching as well. But that's just me. But yeah, Penn State, they have to blow out West Virginia here. I know they're favored only by 8, and I talked about West Virginia being one of those teams where they're good. They're somewhat coming up a little bit. I think they could still be like a 7-5 team this year. But Penn State, they have to go into a tough environment to play in, and they have to blow this West Virginia team out to really prove to me that they are taking a step forward instead of just being on that same 10-2 level all year long.
Yeah, this is definitely an interesting line looking at it, seeing, the number 8 team in the nation is only favored by 8 against an unranked opponent. Like, yeah, Penn State is the away team and they're going to West Virginia, but I don't think West Virginia is, that great of a team to hold, Penn State, to, only, losing by 8. I think Penn State wins and covers. I don't know if the total will hit though. It's because it's at 51.5. I don't know if that's gonna be if that's gonna be hit.
See, I don't know if that total is going to be hit either because Penn State's defense is really, really good. I'd probably put them somewhere in the top 10. I mean, this is obviously just my own opinion on, looking at teams, where they were last year, how much talent are they bringing back sort of deal. I would still put Penn State in that top 10. They did lose quite a bit in the draft, of course, defensively. But I still think that defense is going to be really good because they do have a lot of returning talent there. I feel like this could be a pretty low-scoring game, to be honest with you. I mean, it's going to be a tough environment for that offense, but the Penn State's defense can, I think, really hold down that West Virginia offense. So it's going to be interesting for sure. Number 25, Iowa is hosting Illinois State. Iowa favored by 22.5. I don't even know if Iowa's offense can score 22.5 points, so I'm going to say they won't cover that. And the total's at 40.5. I don't think that's going to hit either. I'd take the under. The defense for Iowa is elite, though. I'd still say probably the best defense, if not at least the top 3. Illinois State, I mean, fucking MAC school, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe not. I don't even fucking know at this point anymore. But I don't know if Iowa's offense can score 22.5 points. So I'm gonna say Iowa won't cover that, and it's gonna be like a final score like 21-0.
Yeah, seeing Iowa favored by double digits is one thing. Seeing them favored by 22.5 is another thing. Like you said I don't think they can score 22.5 points on offense. But on the defensive side, who's to say they don't get a fumble return or a pick 6?
I didn't think about that. Maybe Iowa could cover because defense scores some points. Yeah, I didn't think about that.
I don't think they hit the total just because, yeah, that defense is ridiculous. I don't think they're scoring, 35 points on defense to make up for that 40 points.
Yeah, maybe the offense, with a new offensive coordinator, can be better this year, but I have to see it to believe it first. I have to watch the first few games of their offense to really get to know if this Iowa offense is actually better or not. But for now, I don't know if Iowa can score that many points. Number 15, Tennessee hosting Chattanooga. Tennessee favored by 38.5. I would say, yeah, Tennessee's going to win this game. I mean, that's that. I don't know about covering that 38.5. I mean, yes, Chattanooga is not what it was in the FCS, decades ago, but there's still a somewhat solid program that can put up somewhat of a fight, I guess. Um, but yeah, Tennessee definitely going to win. I don't know about covering there though. Um, but yeah, this is going to be the year for Tennessee. I think where um, can they take that next step forward, or are they going to stay where they were last year?
Yeah, this has been a question in my mind is Tennessee for the longest time. They've been with Hendon Hooker, they were just scratching, that playoff potential, but having two or three losses on the year, just missing out. And now they're past that point, and here's they're favored by almost 40 points. I don't think they'll win by 40 points, nor do I think they cover or hit the total of, 56 and a half. That's a lot of points. I mean, granted, they don't have to do it themselves. Combined, 56 and a half points. Unless Tennessee's defense just absolutely shits the bed, I don't think there's a combined 56 points unless Tennessee scores, 45.
I think that total could hit. Honestly, I mean, Chattanooga will probably score later in the game. Once Tennessee pulls out their guys for basically the entire second half. Tennessee's offense though is absolutely elite. So yeah, I would take that total to go over personally, but yeah. Number 17, Oklahoma State hosting South Dakota State, who is I believe um, one of the top FCS schools right now. Oklahoma State only favored by 9.5. That tells you how much how good South Dakota State really is. I think Oklahoma State wins this game. I don't know about covering though. They could win it by 9. They could win it by 10, sort of deal. That's kind of where I'm sitting at, and that's a tough number. I think South Dakota State's going to put up a very, very good fight. I would not be super surprised if they pulled off the upset either. I'm not too high on Oklahoma State. Obviously, they made it to the Big 12 championship game last year, but that doesn't mean that they're going to, that they are the favorite to win the Big 12. I mean, right now the favorite is Utah anyways, coming into the Big 12. So I look at that number, that 9.5. I'd say it's going to be close. I would maybe say Oklahoma State won't cover that though. Just because again, South Dakota State, one of if not the best FCS schools right now, and it's going to be a good game for sure.
Yeah, just looking a little bit into South Dakota State, it looks like they're coming off back-to-back FCS championships. So I'm thinking they deserve that 9.5 point underdog. But even still, having a top 25 team be, only 9.5 point favorite to the best or quote unquote the best FCS team the past couple years. That I think that gives more credit to South Dakota State than it does Oklahoma State. Simply because yeah, they're a repeat FCS champion, but this is a top 25 FBS school. That's a different animal, and that's incredible to me.
Yeah, it's going to be a close game, I think, all throughout. I don't think Akron's going to get close to a double-digit lead at all at any point in the game. I think their defense is probably going to struggle against this South Dakota State offense. But yeah, back-to-back FCS championships for South Dakota State. So, I mean, them boys can play right now, at least in the FCS. The FBS, I don't know. Number 2, Ohio State is hosting Akron. Ohio State favored by 48.5 here. I'm taking OSU and the points. I think they cover that 48.5. That offense is way too good. Ryan Day is on a mission right now to really just try and save his coaching career. 3 losses in a row to Michigan. You're lucky to have a coaching job at Ohio State when you do that. Akron, outside of maybe Ball State, is the worst team in the MAC. So I'm taking Ohio State to cover that 48.5.
Yeah, I'm with you there on that one. Ohio State's going to cover that, and hell, Ohio State might hit the total themselves. Akron is not a good team, and Ohio State is the second best team in the country, and their offense is just lethal. It is ridiculous, even with losing, the likes of C.J. Stroud, Marvin Harrison Jr., Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, and all of those guys to the NFL. They still have one of the best offenses in college football.
Yeah, and they brought in a fuck ton of great transfers. 4 and 5 star recruits that transferred to them on both sides of the ball. I mean, on paper they're probably the second best team, but they might be the best team. We'll really have to wait and see till the playoffs come around. But yeah, they might hit that 58.5 over as well, just against Akron here. Number 4, Texas is hosting Colorado State. Texas favored by 32 points in this one. The total is at 60.5 here. So, Colorado State's offense is fairly solid. Texas's defense is good. I wouldn't say great. So I would say, yeah, Texas will probably maybe cover that because that offense is going to be, lethal this year. But yeah, Colorado State, they don't stand a chance. And Texas, really great offense, good defense. I think they have no problem. That total, I might bet the under on that. But yeah, I think you could very easily get a combined over between these two teams. So, and Vegas certainly thinks it'll be somewhat closer, or that at least Colorado State can score a decent amount of points here. So, yeah, I'll take Texas to cover that 32 though.
Yeah, I think I'm taking Texas, and I'm leaning towards the cover, but that total is pretty hefty. 60.5 is a lot, just because I think Texas defense is good enough to hold Colorado State to under 30, and I want to give Colorado State credit to where they won't give up 50, 60 points on defense, but they might because Texas's offense is just that good. But again, 60 points is a lot, and it's not like the previous game where Ohio State's playing, the literal bottom of the barrel in Akron.
Yeah, and that's sort of the thing. I think Colorado State, while they are not a good team at all, better than Akron. And Texas, I don't think is as good as Ohio State or Georgia, but as I said last year, and I'm still saying it again, Texas is back. Florida is hosting number 19 Miami. Miami favored only by 2.5 in this one, and I mean it's pretty obvious why. I mean Florida's not good. Miami ain't either, especially when you have Mario Cristobal as your head coach. But anyways, it's. I mean, Miami's a much better team than where Florida's at right now in terms of just talent. But it is a home game for Florida, so I would not be super surprised at an upset here. I do think Miami wins. I think just all around they are better than Florida. And 2.5, I think that should be easy to cover to win it by a field goal. So yeah, I'm taking Miami and to cover this one for sure. I mean, I think this game will be closer just because it is, again, a home game for Florida. I think really the only way Miami loses this game is if Mario Cristobal has a dumbass moment like he did last year where he ran it inside of 30 seconds to go instead of taking a knee like he should have on a first down, and then they lose a game that way. But I honestly the only way Miami loses this game is if Mario Cristobal has a fucking straight up tiny brain moment.
Yeah, that's how I'm kind of leaning too. I think they covered that 2.5 with I mean it's a field goal, so it is a home game for Florida. It's an in-state rivalry, Miami and Florida always, always the game you kind of want to watch. But Florida isn't the Florida of the past, national championship and all of that way back in the day. But it's the top, not a, both of them aren't in the top 25, but, it's still a game where both of them are going to play. And, that 2.5 is very warranted. And I think, especially with Mario Cristobal, Florida could take it. I think the total can hit as well, just because it's a game where either both defenses are just going to stop playing and the offenses are going to go crazy, or there's going to be mistakes on both ends, and that's going to lead to a higher scoring game.
Yeah, I think either way that total is going to go over 54.5. But I think that 2.5 really just boils down to the fact that it is a home game for Florida. If this was in Miami, I think that total would be or not the total, but the spread would be a lot more. I think Miami would be favored by a lot more. Again, just because it is a home game for Florida, that's why I think it drags down a little bit. Number 5, Alabama is hosting Western Kentucky. Alabama favored by 31.5 here. This is kind of it's a new era for Alabama football. I mean, Kalen DeBoer's coming in, no more Saban, and DeBoer's brought in some guys from Washington, from last year's team, and a lot of guys that were Saban guys transferred out. So, but Bama's ranked at number 5 here, and this is kind of one of those seasons where I think we really got to find out what Kalen DeBoer's really made of. Because yes, I mean playing in the Pac-12, he was good. Maybe not great because in the Big Ten he wasn't a great coach at Indiana. He goes to Washington, things look better. I mean, yes, it is a lot easier to recruit to Washington than it is Indiana, but we'll see exactly what he's really made of this year. And we'll see if Bama's actually deserving of this 5 spot. I don't think this game's going to prove that because West Kentucky they're one of those teams in the group of 5 that are they're good for a group of 5 school. They're not a Tulane or Liberty, I would say, but they could put up a decent fight. I remember I think it was last year or 2 years ago they were challenging Ohio State for quite a bit of or at least the first half of a game. So I think Bama will probably cover that 31.5, but I wouldn't be too shocked either if Western Kentucky made sure Bama didn't cover that 31.5.
Yeah, I mean, you said it best. We're in the post-Saban era now with Bama. How are they going to perform? How are they going to respond? Right now, they're the preseason number 5, and they're favored, 31.5. Are they going to cover that? I don't know. There's a total of 59.5. That's a lot. Western Kentucky, let's see, how decent were they last year? I think they were okay. I mean, they were 48th in the country with points for, with averaging 30.5 a game. So that's not bad. Had an actual decent offense. So we're going to see just how they perform in the post-Saban era. Granted, it's not, you're not going to have the exact same, averages, and the exact same performance as, you did last year. But, I think it's a good starter game for them and a good gauge for Bama to see where they're at.
Yeah, I think this will be a good sort of a eyeball test to see where Alabama might be, but I don't think I can take away too much from it just because it is, it's group of 5 versus power 4, so that's kind of like where I'm at, where it's like, maybe Kalen DeBoer is, a great, offensive genius, like he seemed to be at Washington, but it's just going to be, these first few weeks for Bama. I think for me personally, I'm just going to be watching one with the eyeball test on where the talent is for Bama's team, and then also can DeBoer actually coach at the SEC level? Because again, he didn't do too well at the Big Ten, but then he did well in the Pac-12. So I think the competition in the SEC is the toughest. So we'll see what DeBoer's really made of this year, at least in the back half of the season. Ole Miss, number 6, Ole Miss hosting Furman.
Who the fuck is that guy?
Don't know who the fuck they are. But 42.5-point favorites are Ole Miss. I think they cover it. I think they can hit that 60.5 on that total on their own. That offense is one of, if not the best offenses in the country this year. Ole Miss defense, though, they are fucking horrible still. They might be better than last year, but I don't think it's gonna be a whole big improvement. But that offense is absolutely scary. So, yeah, I'm taking Ole Miss to cover and probably hit that total on their own.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't know who the fuck Furman is. I'm assuming they're an FCS school, but
Yes, they are.
you said it. Ole Miss their offense is one of the best in the country, and they have the potential to hit that over themselves or that total themselves. And yeah, I think they do cover. It's 42.5. they have a very lethal offense up there with the likes of Ohio State. They can cover that with ease.
Yeah, and I don't want to say they have the best offense in the country. We'll find out later in the season once they actually start playing real opponents, and that goes for every team. Um, but yeah, I think Ole Miss definitely covers that 42.5. Number 18, Kansas State hosting UT Martin. Again, another FCS school. Kansas State favored by 37. I think Kansas State wins. Cover, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how good UT Martin is, and I don't care to even find out how good they are. And yeah, I'll say Kansas State covers on this one. I'm obviously picking them to win. I don't know because I don't care about UT Martin because this is my problem is why do we play why do all these top schools play all these dog shit FCS teams at least like Oklahoma State's playing the back-to-back FCS championship or champions.
Yeah, I agree because at the end of the day, and at the end of the season rather, you have these teams where you have to compare these schedules. They end up with the same record, and now even with the expanded playoffs, you're gonna have more of that at the end of the season. You have how many 12 slots, and 10 of these teams have 10-3 records or something like that. Now all of a sudden you have to start comparing who did they play, and a lot of the past seasons we've been hearing, Michigan didn't have the best looking schedule. They didn't, they had the cupcakes schedule, blah 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 blah. You have that every year, but I think even more, it's going to happen even more so now because you have these teams that you're pretty much paying to come and just get blown out. But then you have, another ranked team, like you said, playing the back-to-back FCS champ. They're not paying them to come, get blown out. They're paying them to actually compete against, the best of that, division and actually give that team, the reigning FCS champ, that, publicity that they won't normally get just simply being an FCS team.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, yeah, these teams are getting paid to get blown out by these top programs. Number 3, Oregon, in their first season in the Big Ten, hosting Idaho, another FCS team, and one that's somewhat decent, I guess. They're not a South Dakota State or a North Dakota State program, but they're competitive in the FCS. So, but Oregon's favored by 43.5, and Oregon's team is absolutely loaded up front on both sides of the ball. You got NFL talent basically at every single position on both offensive and defensive lines. And Oregon's, they lost Bo Nix, of course, but they had a pretty solid backup, and I forget the kid's name off the top of my head, but he's pretty solid, I would say. But yeah, Oregon, 43.5. I don't know if they cover that one. They got the total here at 62.5 here. So I think I think they at least Vegas thinks that Idaho is going to score quite a few points, and by quite a few I mean like probably around like 18, 19 points, total. But yeah, Oregon, they might cover that 43.5. We'll just have to see. It's really going to depend on when do they pull the starters, on if they cover that 43.5. Because if they pull them before the half, probably not going to cover it. But if it's in the fourth quarter, then they're probably already covering that 43.5.
Yeah, like we've been saying, it's a top team playing an FCS team. I think Oregon, very handily wins this game. Can they cover that 43.5? I think they can. The total being 62.5. You're asking either Idaho to score more points or Oregon to score, 43, plus by themselves and then have Idaho score 20. I don't think they hit the total points, but I think Oregon can cover.
Yeah, it's gonna be an interesting game for sure, just because really it's gonna boil down to when does Oregon pull their starters. This is a good game here. Number 20, Texas A&M hosting number 7 Notre Dame. Texas A&M favored by 3 in this game. I think Notre Dame wins this game. I'm not too high on Texas A&M. I think they've been overrated for the last few years, and I think right away we're going to see that again. I mean, Notre Dame has a good amount of returning talent from last year's team. That was quite disappointing last year, quite frankly. But yeah, I think Notre Dame could pull off the upset here. It is in College Station though, so that's where it's like, okay, I can see why Texas A&M is probably favored in this game. This game's going to go down to the wire, though. I really, really believe that. And it's going to be a lot lower scoring than I think Vegas thinks it is. Because, I mean, they have it at a 46.5. Actually, no, so Vegas thinks it's going to be fairly low scoring, too. And pretty close, obviously. But I think Notre Dame wins this one by about, let's call it a field goal.
Yeah, I think because it is in College Station, and that's one of the hardest, atmospheres to play in college football. That's why Texas A&M is sitting here at a 3-point favorite. But I think you are right. I think Notre Dame does take it by a field goal. And the total, they're asking, each team to score a little more than 23 points. I think both of those teams can do that. I think this is going to be a game where you're going to end up the likes of, 28-31, something like that.
Yeah, it's going to be very, very close. It's going to be a good game to watch for sure. I'll be at the bar watching this one drunk. That's for sure. Um, number
Yeah, I think I'll be with you there on that one.
number 21, Arizona hosting New Mexico. Arizona favored by 31 here. So I know in the Big 12 preview show I said that Arizona might be fairly good this year. Well, I found out that they only have like 2 returning players on their offense from last year and like 5 guys from their defense, and they lost their head coach. So I might have to walk that back a little bit, and they'll probably win like 7 games this year. But their quarterback is returning. He's this really, really good. I can't say what I was about to call him. Mexican guy. Yeah, he's pretty good. I wouldn't say he's a great quarterback, but he's a very good quarterback, very solid. Arizona, obviously New Mexico played last weekend in week 0. But yeah, I think Arizona will cover that 31 there. I mean, New Mexico's program is kind of shit. I mean, it's an FBS Group of 6 school, but Arizona will cover that 31 though. I think no problem.
Yeah, this is an Arizona team that's been, coming up and up pretty surprisingly, at least to me. I've always looked at them as a basketball school, always watching them in March Madness, just like, I don't want to play them, I don't want to play them, blah, blah, blah. But now here they are. They're ranked, in the preseason. Granted, it is the preseason poll. We'll see how they end up, later in the season. But they're favored, 31 points here. I think they win, and they do cover. Because, like you said, New Mexico is not good.
Yeah, they're not good. And quite frankly, I mean, yes, Arizona, like I said, they did lose their head coach, and I didn't even think about that when we did the Big 12 preview. So that's gonna be tough. It's a whole new regime over there in Arizona. Maybe they'll be good. Maybe this new coach will be good. And they did bring in a decent amount of recruits this year. So I don't know where Arizona truly lies. So. But I think we'll find out in a few weeks' time for sure. That is the nightcap game for Saturday. Sunday, 7:30, we have number 13 LSU hosting number 23 USC. This is in Allegiant Stadium though, so that's in Las Vegas. So neutral field, of course. LSU is the home team in this game. LSU's defense blows. So does USC's. The LSU's offense should be fairly good though this year. I mean, they did lose Jaden Daniels and their top receivers, but I think they'll still be a good team this year. And schedule game really says LSU is going to be good this year. But USC, they don't have Caleb Williams, so it's kind of like how much did he actually carry that offense? We still know the defense blows. Maybe the new defensive coordinator taught these guys actually how to tackle, but we'll see. LSU, though, favored by 4.5 here, and this is where I this is a number I don't like. Anything between 4.5 and 5.5. I'm taking the underdog in this one. So give me USC to win this game.
I don't know if I agree with USC winning this game. I think I'm going to take LSU, but I think it's going to be really close. I don't know if 4.5 is really, you know, I'm really comfortable with that. I think LSU wins by a field goal and they don't cover that 4.5. But that total, even being 64.5, I think that's hit easily. Both of these teams are scoring upwards of 30 points.
Yeah, but both these teams' defenses blow, so I mean, this is going to be a high-scoring game. But 5 is the devil's number. It's one of those numbers, and between 4.5, 5, and 5.5, those three numbers, like the underdog wins somewhere around like 60 to 70% of the time. It just kind of depends on which number you're actually looking at. It's the worst number to be favored by for any team statistically. So that's where I'm just like, I really want to take LSU. Like my brain says take LSU, but that number just tells me take USC. Vegas might not know something or whatever, but I always stay away from any number around 5 because that is the devil's number. I mean, 5 is actually the devil's number when it comes to betting. So yeah, but either way, this is going to be a very close game, I think, throughout. A very high scoring game for sure. You'll see probably a lot more USC fans there just because Vegas is a lot closer than Louisiana. So yeah. And then finally, Monday Night Football, we have number 10 Florida State hosting Boston College. Florida State is favored by 16.5. Obviously, coming off that pretty embarrassing loss to Georgia Tech this weekend in Dublin. Boston College almost beat Florida State last year too.
Fucking embarrassing!
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. But yeah, I think Florida State. I mean, I don't know because they did not look good against Georgia Tech. But again, I think travel might have played a part in that. I'm going to go with Florida State to win this. I don't think they cover that 16.5, though. I think Boston College is going to play a lot closer to them like they did last year. And again, we don't really know if Florida State's in trouble. But if they lose this game, I think we might have to start sounding the alarm already on Florida State.
Yeah, I feel comfortable taking them to win a rebound game. I don't have them covering. That's obviously, like you said, that's a really just terrible performance they had overseas, and that's, I'm going to attribute most of that to being overseas and dealing with that. But now, you're back home, you're in Florida, you're playing, a lesser ACC team, or who I would assume is, a lesser ACC team. You just have to prove that you can, come back and win. But if you're going to keep playing the way they did play, it's going to be a rough ride.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. I think this is going to kind of be the game where if Florida State loses, we have to sound the alarm. We absolutely have to, because that could be a big problem. It could be a big problem. Again, it was overseas. I don't want to give too much, credit or discredit, to Georgia Tech and Florida State for the performance is in that game. I think Georgia Tech's a bit of a better school than they played. Mistakes were made on for their team too. So it's just kind of a matter of, how good is Florida State actually? How much was it the being overseas part? So yeah, I don't think they cover that 16.5 though. I think if they win, it's going to be by about a touchdown. Maybe a touchdown and a field goal, but that's about it. I don't think they even get a 2-touchdown lead to finish the game. But yeah, that's going to wrap us up, guys. Not a whole lot in terms of NFL. I mean, we had a lot of cuts today. Or not today, but yesterday. Got to get these rosters down to 53. And so, yeah. Tuesday, of course, we're going to review all these games from this weekend for the top 25. And then Thursday next week, we'll do the same thing. we'll add NFL as well. Mike is going to join us for next next Thursday's episode, so it's going to be quite a bit longer. So yeah, but with that said, guys, rate, review, subscribe, help us out. Let us know what you guys want to see more of. Of course, check out our YouTube page. Keep sharing the podcast with your friends, with your family. If you guys like talking sports, we want to listen to you guys and bring you guys what you want to see more of. So thank you guys so much for listening, and we will see you guys next week on Tuesday.